Hey there to my 50 subscribers, my future subscribers, and all the people that secretly watch me without subscribing. I'm recording this on May 8th to go up October 12th, so I'm sure the subscriber count's going to be way off. But I want to make sure I have these up so I don't have to worry about accidentally missing one. Today is part 7, the final part of Enigmas of Auslage. And I'm just going to read the end of the story to you guys. And if you haven't listened to the rest, please go listen to the rest of it before listening to the end, or some of it may not make sense to you. It's a book that I created for like middle school age kids, and but anybody can listen or read, whatever you choose to do. I will be putting a link in the description in case you decide you want to own a copy of the book. It's on Amazon. And anyway, so part 7 is called Saving the Class. It's September 1st and it's the first day back to school. I had hopes that all of the craziness of summer would end before school started. I can feel that it's not quite finished though. I walk over to my parents' kitchen because my mom likes us to eat together on special days, and back to school is special to her. Grace, Gabriel, and my dad are all sitting at the table. It all looks wonderful, Mom. There are several bowls on the table with fresh pineapple, strawberries, blackberries, peaches, grapes, and cantaloupe. There's also a large container of vanilla yogurt, a box of granola, a carton of almond milk, and a jug of orange juice. What a treat. My parents must have gone to the farmer's market again. Thanks. Enjoy as much as you want. As we walk into the school, I see Denny walking Chrissy to the kindergarten section of Mr. Ryan's class. It's her first day going to school. Justin is now on our side of the school since he is starting 6th grade. We are assigned to the 10th grade table where Jennifer, Kimmy, and Drake were at last year. Grace and I head to our new table and sit down. Within a few minutes, Denny comes into the class and walks over to sit with us. Hey guys, what's up? Hey Denny. Grace looks pleased with herself. She knows that I somewhat followed her advice, and because of that, Denny has become a little less shy. Hi Denny. I give him a big smile. I'm not sure how, but we have been able to keep our adventures a secret, as well as the fact that we've been spending so much time together. Obviously, Grace knows. I can't hide anything from her anymore. But Drake has been grounded for the past couple of months. His grandpa had found out that some gunpowder was missing and knew Drake was the only person that could have taken it. And Jennifer's been so busy with the foxes and at Ella's house, she's barely noticed that I'm not at her house as much. Grace has been helping Jennifer with the foxes too, so I think that has helped. Mrs. Destiny stood at the front of the classroom and waited for the excitement to settle down. Destiny, came the voice. What kind of timing is this? She was looking around, confused. She started talking, but her voice was shaky. Our first assignment will be to write what you guys remember about the field trip that we went on. It's been proven that people remember events differently. So I'm curious what each of you remember. No getting information from other classmates, or your recollection will be tainted. Now I know that Justin didn't go with us, so Justin, just write about the most memorable thing that happened this summer. All of the kids pulled out their new binders. I was somewhat hesitant because I remember so much more than everybody else. I'm not sure what they remember, so I don't know what to include or leave out. But with the voice calling Mrs. Destiny, maybe it's okay to write more. It's inevitable that I will be telling it all to her anyway, so I begin writing it all down. It was nice to put it in writing, everything I could remember. I write faster than most people, but almost everybody else was finished within 15 minutes. I kept writing because it felt so good to get it out. The voice can be heard again. Destiny. I look up, noticed Mrs. Destiny looking around, then she seemed to realize that I could hear it too. I nodded and smiled. It was maybe another 10 minutes before I finished writing my assignment. Everybody else had already finished and put their assignments into the basket on Mrs. Destiny's desk. I had almost 4 complete pages, so I stapled them together before I put mine into the basket. I wasn't worried about other kids questioning me about writing a lot more than them. With the exception of Justin, everybody knows that I write excessively on all my assignments. As I sit back down in my seat, I can feel my crystal begin to vibrate. The humming noise seems high, with 5 crystals vibrating. Jennifer, Grace, and Denny begin looking anxious. I couldn't see Luke from where I was sitting, but I'm sure it was bothering him too. Mrs. Destiny was looking confused. She could tell that only some of the kids could hear the noise. I could hear Grace's voice in my head. Is someone else getting a crystal? I respond by thinking my answer. It's Mrs. Destiny. I know it's close, either on or near the school property. Okay, class, I think we should all take a break. You can get up and walk around in here, or go outside if you would like. I put my binder away, jumped up, and quickly walked up to Mrs. Destiny. Where can we talk? I was trying to speak to her quietly. Let's go to the music room. Miss Isabella won't be here until tomorrow. Am I losing my mind? I hope not. If you are, so are a handful of us kids. Once we got to Miss Isabella's class, it took me quite a while to explain everything to her. I didn't tell her about all of the places that Denny and I had been, but I did tell her about the man and the boat. In Australia, I was amazed that she didn't appear to be surprised. She acted like it was news she heard all the time. She gave me a gentle smile. I've been having dreams about crystals glowing underwater. Nothing seems to happen in the dreams that I can remember. I just stand there looking at the water, then I wake up. I've also dreamed about some of the things you kids have gone through. I thought they were just dreams because I missed being at school and around you kids. The dreams have been cloudy and unclear, making the details hard to see. Do you think the dreams are connected to the crystals? Maybe we'll have to find yours, but maybe your ability involves dreaming of the future and the past. You could be dreaming about when we were at the pool in the cave. I don't remember seeing a pool in the cave, but I'll take your word for it. Not like that would be the strangest thing to happen to me lately. Where do you think the crystal is? We can walk outside and look around. I feel that it's on the property, or possibly next door, but it's definitely on this block. We walk out the front door and around to the back of the property. We talk casually about how summer vacation had gone. Other kids didn't get suspicious. Jennifer and Grace ran up to us. Jennifer pointed in the direction of the playground. Grace and I have looked all over the playground. Denny and Luke are trying to look around the fence lines without Drake or Gabriel knowing what they are doing. We haven't found it. I assume it's close considering how loud the crystals are vibrating. I think so. We are going to check near the bus. I remember seeing the bus and that tire in my dreams. Mrs. Destiny pointed in the general direction of the bus. She began walking faster now. She got over near the bus and bent down near one of the old tires that was on the ground. She reached into the center of the tire and picked up the crystal. Then all of the crystals went silent. It's beautiful. It's a sapphire. I thought about when Molly had told me. Tonight, remember what you dream. I'm sure it will be very important. I feel that you will have psychic dreams. That is your ability. I can sense it. The rest of the day seemed fairly ordinary. We were getting back into the school routine. The only real difference was the special bond that all of the crystal carriers had. I can't speak for everybody else, but they all felt like family to me. It was almost like the entire town was starting to feel like family. I felt like I needed them and they needed me. Several of us kids, including Drake, Simon, Gabriel, Annie, and Chrissy, walked home together. I guess we were all bonding. Maybe the presence of the crystals were making us closer. Not only were we bonding with each other, but to each other's families and friends too. Chrissy wanted me to carry her, which gave Denny an excuse to walk closer to me. Sometimes I wondered if Drake noticed the change in Denny, but it didn't really matter who noticed as long as we were enjoying life. Once we were all back home, we went into our own apartments and did our homework. I got mine done really fast, as always, so I went outside to sit on the step. I leaned forward with my arms crossed on my legs. daydreaming about the places that Denny and I had gone to. Then I started to think about where we might go next. Denny came out of his apartment. He had his binder. He motioned for me to come sit on one of the benches with him. "Could you help me with the spelling on my homework? I want to start turning in better work with less errors." "Of course, I would love to help you." I sat next to him as he set his binder on the table. So we sat there and went over his schoolwork. Then, when we were finished, he picked up his things and just sat there. "Are you okay? Is something bothering you?" I could tell that he had something on his mind. "Everything is great." He smiled big, with his dimples very obvious. He leaned forward and kissed me for a couple of seconds. Then he jumped up and started walking away. He turned around for a moment. "Good night." Then he ran back into his apartment. I sat there, lost in thought. Then I went back to my apartment. The next day at school, Mrs. Destiny was anxious to talk to me. We borrowed Miss Isabella's room again, since she hadn't arrived yet. "How did it go last night? Do you remember what you dreamed about?" "I dreamed clearer dreams about the summer, and I dreamed about the field trip, only I remembered everything. You didn't tell me that Molly was there. Why?" "I have had to keep it a secret all this time so Jennifer doesn't get hurt." Mrs. Destiny nodded. "I thought I would dream about the future, but the summer and the field trip were all that I dreamed about." "Maybe we left something in the cave unfinished? At least I finally feel like I don't have to find any more crystals." "What do you mean?" "I feel like I'm at peace, like all the crystals have been found." We left the music classroom just as Miss Isabella entered the room. "Good morning, lovely ladies." She has always been one of the friendliest people in town. "Good morning," we said in unison. Mrs. Destiny and I walked back to the class. As I walk over to my seat, I notice that Denny has his hands flat on the table as he rests back against his chair. I put my hand on his for a second. Then, while walking around to the other side of him, I let my hand brush up his arm, across his back and down his other arm, to his other hand. I sat down, looked at him, then tried not to giggle. I could hear Drake whispering behind us, "Denny, hey, Denny, look at me, what's going on?" Denny turns his head towards Drake, shrugs, then looks back to the front of the room with a big smile on his face. The rest of the week was fairly normal. The only thing I really noticed was Drake. During every break, including lunch, he was hounding Denny. It was driving him crazy that he didn't know what was going on. He couldn't understand why Denny was so calm and didn't seem to be shy around me. I thought it was funny. Denny complained to me a couple of times, but I could tell that he thought it was funny too. Saturday at church, Mrs. Destiny came up to me and shook my hand. "I need to get your opinion on something." We went into the adult school area in the back right corner of the church. We were alone. "Look, I had a bad dream last night, and I don't know if it is part of our future. If it is, our school and my family are in trouble. How do I know for sure?" "Tell me about the dream." "Well, we are in class on Monday after lunch. 2 guys that I've never seen come in with guns. They are yelling at us that we have their treasure. When nobody knows what they are talking about, they shoot into the air. Ryan comes in, running in, and they shoot him. What do we do? How can we stop it from happening? I don't know if we can prevent them from showing up, but maybe we can prepare for their arrival just in case it does happen." We talk about the possibilities. We discuss how we can stop them. We decide that I will talk to Jennifer and Grace, while she makes excuses to talk to Luke and Denny. She will also talk to Mr. Ryan and our maintenance guy to prepare for the possibilities. So we head out of the room to go back and mingle with everybody. Denny and Luke are actually talking to each other, which will make it easier for Mrs. Destiny to talk to each of them. Then I grab Grace's hand and tell her to come with me. I grab Jennifer's hand on the way outside, and she understands that I need to talk to her. I explain to them both about the dream and the plan to stop these guys. Monday morning arrives quicker than I felt it should. I think I was just scared of what would happen, so the time flew by. As we walk into the school, I could see that the maintenance man, Andrew Ireland, is just finished putting a lock on Mr. Ryan's classroom door. Andrew is probably the reason that Miss Isabella loves music so much. When he's not at work, it seems that he's always got his guitar. He lives on the other side of the apartment complex behind Denny, so I see him often. Hey, Andrew, I wave to him as he looks up at me. Hello, Cass. Thanks for making our school a safer place. Happy to do it, he nods, picks up the old doorknob and his screwdriver, then walks into Mr. Ryan's classroom. I am sure he is going to check the back door and windows to make sure they are secure. I go into my classroom and everybody else is already seated. Mrs. Destiny was anxious to get started. Today we are going to do something different. We are going to discuss what to do in case of an emergency. I know we have had fire drills and earthquake drills, but what if there was danger from a person? Does anybody know what to do if someone comes into the classroom with a gun? Justin raises his hand. Yes, Justin? We tackle him and knock him out. I wish it was that easy, but that would be too dangerous. Anybody else? Some of us have been talking about it all weekend, but nobody else is raising their hands. I guess I should take the first question. First, we have to stay calm. If people panic, the guy with the gun might panic. That's good. Yes, stay calm and remain seated. Now, if this person or these people give you instructions, try to follow them. You don't want to anger them if possible. Do not try to run away unless you know that they don't see you. Then make sure you are as quiet as a mouse. Sometimes in trying to get away, you might have to hide several times before you can get completely away. And always remember to stay calm. That is the most important thing. I could tell that Mrs. Destiny was nervous. She was rambling on and on. Who could blame her, though? She had dreamed of the nightmare to come. It was up to us to save the class. It was almost lunchtime, and I casually pointed to the clock. Mrs. Destiny looked up at it. I guess it's time for lunch. Class dismissed. All of us that knew what might happen were feeling a mix of fear, nervousness, anxiety, anxiousness, and some panic. Mr. Ryan had been told to teach his class the same things today, but included in his class was, if you hear yelling or gunfire, lock the doors and windows, close the blinds, and stay down. Mr. Ryan was reminded that it is his job to protect the class. Susan Paxton always came to our school and fixed our lunches. It left her cafe a little short-handed, but everybody in town was accepting of that. Today we are having mac and cheese with turkey ham on it, corn, mashed potatoes, and cherry cobbler. The little bit that I ate was really good, but it's hard for me to eat when I'm nervous. Grace, Jennifer, and I sit across from Denny, Drake, and Kimmy as always. I start to think about the possibility of our plans failing. I noticed Denny's right hand was fidgeting on the table while he ate with his left hand. I reached across the table and put my hand on top of his. Jennifer and Drake were staring, but I didn't care. We sat there in silence for a few minutes while picking at our food. We even sat there while the other kids went out to play. Drake tried to get Denny to go outside, but he didn't want to go. What is wrong with you? You are acting like it's the end of the world. All of you, what are your problems? Come on, Kimmy. Lunch break went by fast, and we could hear kids running into their rooms. Grace, want to come with me and make sure that everybody came in? Sure, we should hurry so we can get back to class. Denny, you go ahead back to class and we'll be right there. He nodded. Jennifer walked back to the class with Denny. Grace and I went into Mr. Ryan's class. Brooklyn was at her table, Annie and Simon were at theirs, and Chrissy had moved to a table that was closer to Mr. Ryan. We waved to the kids, walked out, and shut the door behind us. When we got to our classroom, everybody was seated. They seemed to be waiting for us. Sorry, after the safety talk this morning, we wanted to make sure that the younger kids were safe. That was the truth, except for the reason we were worried. Mrs. Destiny was hesitating, but figured we had to get some work done. She passed out some papers for everybody. School is a little different here than in most places. Instead of studying something different for each grade, we study different levels of the same thing. Like now, Mrs. Destiny will teach the 6th grade level of anatomy for Justin, but at the same time Julian and Brandy will get more complicated worksheets than Justin. Gabriel's and Luke's is even more complicated. My tables is a lot more complicated. Then the hardest worksheets go to Jennifer, Drake, and Kimmy. Suddenly we could hear yelling. It must have been the guys from Mrs. Destiny's Dream. I would guess that they are yelling at Caroline. She is the secretary of the school and is married to Andrew. I hope they don't hurt her. Mrs. Destiny didn't say anything about that being in her dream. I look at Grace and she has her eyes closed. She must be trying to communicate with them to protect Caroline. They quieted down, then came into our room. They glance around the room, then start to yell. The bigger man must be at least 6.5 feet tall. He's a bit heavy-set with shoulder-length hair that is brown and stringy. He has a hat on that reminds me of Crocodile Dundee. His clothes appear to be a bit tattered, like he's been living in a dumpster for some time. What have you done with our treasure? The difference between him and the other guy is a bit comical. The smaller guy is only about 5 feet tall. He has dark blonde hair that is really curly. Or maybe it's really curly blonde hair. That is very dirty. It's hard to tell. He doesn't have a hat on. But his clothes are in the same condition as his friend. Yeah, what did you do with it? Shut up. The bigger guy looked annoyed. He shot his gun, taking a chunk out of the ceiling. Some sheetrock fell on Brandy, and she started to quietly sob into her hands. I had this conversation in my head for the last 2 days, but I was still halfway guessing what to say because I didn't know how they would respond. Sir, can you tell me about your treasure so I'll know if I've seen it? Our crystals began vibrating, but only those of us with them seemed aware of the humming noise. The big man looked confused, then yelled at me. You know all about it. I think you are the one that took it. Honestly, sir, I might be able to help you better if you describe it to me and told me where you had it. He is trumping his feet around while pacing back and forth through the room. Grace closes her eyes again and must have been saying something, because he appeared to relax a little. I've gotten really good at finding lost things. Please tell me about your treasure, so maybe I can help you find it. You would help us? Sure, if I can. Mrs. Destiny was trying to stay calm and keep out of their way as they paced around the front of the room. My grandfather had mined a bunch of gold, but put it in a wooden box, then relocated it to the Friarda tubes. He wouldn't leave it in the cave that he found it in, because there were a lot of people mining that cave. He thought the tubes would be safe, because they were shut down. We searched the cave all summer, but the layout isn't the same as he described it. The man started to get angry again and raised his voice loudly. Your class was the only ones that went in there before we got there. You stole it. He pointed his gun at me. Sir, there were some people from the state in there before we went in, and I'm sure none of us found a treasure. The man started waving his gun around in frustration. Luke stood up and spoke to the man. We didn't take anything from the cave, but we could help you look. The guy spun around, pointing the gun at Luke. The gun started to be pulled up out of the man's hands, and I knew that Luke was doing it. The man, in a panic, pulled the trigger right as Luke forced it away from the kids. It went off and hit the smaller man's shoulder. Look what you made me do. The man was distraught and about to cry, it seemed. Jennifer jumped up and ran to the injured man. In our plans, we had considered that somebody might get hurt, but we didn't expect it to be one of the men. I can help him. Get away from him. You've caused enough problems. Please let her help him, I was pleading with him. Grace was obviously communicating with him again because his expression softened. Okay, but no funny stuff. Sir, we are just kids. We won't hurt you. Now please let me help you. Maybe if we go to the cave together, I can find your treasure. Everybody in the room was staring at me in disbelief except for Grace. I could hear Grace's voice inside my head. The gold wasn't his grandpa's. It was stolen from the other miners when their backs were turned. He knows that and thinks it's funny that his grandpa was a thief. The smaller man got back to his feet, slightly stumbling as he stood. Jennifer went back to their table. How did you do that? It feels like it never happened. Mind over matter. You just have to have faith for amazing things to happen. Okay, everybody, just shut up. Girl, what is your name? Kassandra. Well, Cassandra, you're coming with me. Danny spoke up. Let me come too. You might need an extra hand digging or moving rocks. Okay, Cassandra and you, boy. Boy, what is your name? Denny. Nobody call the police or I'll shoot these kids, I swear it. We left the room with the two men and headed to their vehicle. Hopefully Mrs. Destiny remembered the other part of the plan. Hopefully she remembered to call Elijah at the jail this morning and tell him to lock all the cells. I know that we are in unplanned territory for the most part, but as long as Denny is there, we can hopefully still have the same outcome that we have planned for. On the way to the cave, we learned that the larger man was Joshua and the smaller man was Thomas. I don't think that they really wanted to hurt us, but they were jumpy and paranoid enough that accidents happened to them all the time. We got out of their SUV and went into the cave. Can you tell me what is different than the way your grandpa described the cave? It could help me to figure out where the treasure is. Soon, the men made us walk in front of them, directing us on which way to go. We got to where the cave-in had been when we were last here. There were shovels, picks, and camping supplies all around. Right there should be 3 tunnels, but there are only 2. You kids blocked the path, so we couldn't find it. Sir, there was a cave-in and we barely made it out alive. I promise it wasn't on purpose, but I do feel that your treasure is close. We will stand here and wait for you two to clear the rocks. He pointed to the big pile. Denny and I started moving the rocks. We were picking them up and tossing them aside, careful not to hit the walls of the cave. We didn't want another cave-in. We both bent down at the same time to pick some up from the bottom. Denny nudged me, then he was whispering, so they couldn't hear. How can I touch them both to transport them? They are not coming near us. Look at that bigger rock. I'll help you get to it. Then you ask for their help. What are you two whispering about? We see a really big rock that I don't think Cass can help me with. It's going to take the 2 of you to help me move it. We are just trying to clear around it first. We worked for a few more minutes, then I stood up out of the way. Thomas handed me the flashlight. Joshua was trying to help them one-handed, but he couldn't get a hold of the rock. You might have to holster your gun long enough to lift the rock. I was trying to reason with him. Joshua holstered his gun, and they all reached for the big rock again. Denny pretended to lose his balance while squatting near the rock. He tipped over and put his hands on the men's feet. They vanished. Only a couple of seconds went by, then Denny was back in the cave. He stood up and smiled. Done. I threw my arms around him. You did a great job. That was perfect. Well, what do you want to do now? You could teleport us to the treasure. Where is it? On the other end of this tunnel, I believe. I was still in the middle of finishing my sentence when we appeared in the cavern where we were during the cave-in. I think it's in there. I pointed to the tunnel that Drake had been in, so we walked in there. It's in the wall. In here, I can feel it. I was looking around trying to figure out which spot. Do what you had told me before. Close your eyes and concentrate. He was holding my hand while we talked. I closed my eyes and started thinking about the treasure. I could feel it. It was like it was pulling me closer. I was trying to carefully walk with the feeling. I tripped once, but Denny kept me from falling. I was there. I knew it. I opened my eyes. Right in front of me, I could see that a stone was loose. I tried to grab it with my fingers, but I couldn't get a hold of it. I'll get it. He pulled a small pocket knife out of his pants pocket and pried the rock out. It fell to the ground. I shined the flashlight into the hole and I could see the little wooden box. It was about the size of a typical lunchbox. This is really happening. I was in awe. I reached into the hole to get the box. I had to wiggle it to get it out because it barely fit into the hole. Denny took the flashlight as I opened the box. It was full of gold nuggets, with one egg-shaped sapphire in the middle. The sapphire had obviously not been mined with the gold, because it had already been made into a necklace. I pulled it out and was staring at it, when the crystals in our pockets finally quieted down. Denny handed me the flashlight and took the necklace. He then put the necklace on me. Beautiful. Denny was staring at me. As we stood there, I realized what we had to do. We need to gather the other crystals and return them to the crystal pool. We don't need them anymore because the power is in us. Let's go and get this business finished. I handed Denny the box, took his free hand, then we were instantly back at the school. The kids were all talking, and I could hear one asking how we got there. Denny handed the box to Mrs. Destiny. This should be used to help the town, and maybe even the hole in the ceiling. Everybody looked up and laughed. Most of the kids in the class joined Mrs. Destiny in giving us hugs. It was almost a complete class hug except for Drake and Kimmy. Kimmy was trying to talk to Drake while he glared at Denny. I collected the crystals from Mrs. Destiny, Jennifer, and Grace. Denny got the one from Luke. We will be back in a bit. We have one more thing that we have to take care of. I took Denny's hand and he teleported us to the crystal pool. Come with me into the pool. I don't want to break them by tossing them. Denny followed me in. We put the crystals into the water gently, allowing them to float to the bottom. When I looked up, Denny was smiling at me. Now will you be my girlfriend? Of course. I have been waiting forever for you to ask. We were still kissing when Denny transported us back to class. Mrs. Destiny and the other kids were cheering, clapping, and laughing. We started giggling too. I think we need dry clothes again. We found out that Mrs. Destiny didn't just tell Elijah to lock the cells. She told him that some strange things had been going on and that these two guys were armed and dangerous. She also called him again after the whole ordeal was over. She let him know that these guys had taken the whole class hostage, had threatened injury to everybody, damaged school property, threatened to shoot Denny and me, and they were thieves. No, she couldn't explain how they got into the cell, but they needed to be locked away for life, or they would come back and hurt the kids. Once Elijah got the gun from Joshua, he had a state policeman come and get them. He had written a report with the obvious facts, but listed the person responsible for the citizen's arrest as anonymous. In other news, Denny and I dated for the next 3 years before we got married. We ended up having twins. We named the girls Sierra Donna after our mother's middle names. We named the boy Brett Maxwell after our father's middle names. We don't know yet if our abilities will be passed down to them. Only time will tell. But we are doing pretty good for ourselves. We were given some of the money from the gold and used it to open a family-friendly nightclub across the road from Emmett and Phoebe's farm. The kids and adults love to hang out there and listen to the variety of music that we offer. And people from neighboring towns come too. Denny shared his secret with his dad and sometimes goes with him to search for missing children. The help that he provides helps take some of the stress off of Micah. So him and Rebecca are now dating again to see how it goes. Grace has the most successful veterinarian practice anywhere in the state. People wonder how she almost always knows what is wrong with an animal before she examines it. Only a handful of people will ever know. People come from all over so their pets will have the best care. She didn't marry because her career is the most important thing to her, but her love of reading has led her to teach reading classes to people that struggle with reading. When she starts to teach someone new, she likes to tell them one of her favorite phrases. She tells them to learn from the past, look to the future, and act in the present. You need to be able to read about the past so you can learn from it, but not dwell on it. Jennifer went on to become a doctor. Currently, she is working at a huge hospital in the city, but she has let Ellen know that whenever she needs her, she will come back and help. She fell in love with a girl from the city named Jenna. They got married and have just recently adopted a baby girl and named her Jolene Anna. Jenna owns an art museum and teaches art classes. The most loved paintings in the museum are the ones that Jennifer and Jenna have painted of each other. Gabriel invented some crazy machine that will record your dreams and play them back for you. It took him 8 years to design and perfect it, but now there are large companies that are begging him to sell the prototype to them. He has dated a lot, but chooses to spend his time on his inventions. He has always sworn that he would be rich someday, and it's finally looking like that might happen. Kimmy got over her obsession with Denny about a year after graduating high school. she ended up falling in love with Drake. They swear that marriage isn't for them, and they prefer partying to anything else. They are currently living with Drake's parents due to the lack of steady jobs. Luke and Tasha may have had 5 years between them in school, but now they are famous singers and go on tour together. They sing Christian rock and are quickly becoming famous worldwide. Neither of them have started a family yet, but Tasha has mentioned to reporters that she plans to soon. The rest of the kids are still in school. Aiden and Emily have 5 kids now. They are really enjoying being parents and are probably some of the best parents I've ever met. The only other thing that has really changed in town is that Blake and Anthony have finally admitted that they like each other. I'm sure Grace had something to do with that. She was always hinting around to the fact that they liked each other, and she would get frustrated that they had happy secrets. Most of the town has been very accepting. One final note about Molly. Denny has taken me to see her, the little unicorns, and the cats several times. When Jennifer is feeling down, we take her to see Molly. We have also taken Grace on occasion, so she can visit with the calves and the unicorns. But we are the only ones that know about these trips. So, anyway, that's the end of the book. I hope you've enjoyed it and that you stick around and listen to the lyric video at the end. Hopefully before too long. My husband wants to do a remix of the song, so we'll see how that goes and post it on here when it's done. I don't have a clue on a time frame right now because there's a lot of stuff going on. But anyway, please like, subscribe, comment, share, and enjoy your day. Thanks. Bye.
The small town of Auslage, some crystals were found, bestowing upon the kids powers abound. Together they journey through Auslage land, their powers a blessing, their teamwork at hand. Kassandra, her gift to find what's misplaced. Jennifer heals with her faith embraced. Luke with his mind, moving things with ease. They all work together, creating some peace. A mysterious fight, a crazy notion, a book of the future set into motion. Powers are granted to the ones chosen with crystal that shine as moonlit ocean. Oh, Grace hears what she needs to show that she cares. Danny travels at will, his passage he shares. Destiny streams with vision so clear. The challenges they face are soon to appear. A mysterious fight, a crazy notion, a book of the future set into motion. Powers are granted to the ones chosen with crystal that shine as moonlit ocean. Oh, the crystals of Auslage, a force to behold, a token to cherish, the powers small town of Auslage. The crystal so clear, a token of power, treasures once feared. Oh, Kassandra and her friends, with skills out of sight, the small town of Auslage, a mighty delight. Oh, Kassandra and her friends, with skills out of sight, the small town of Auslage,